Hey guys, welcome to Michelle's Opinions. We're going to call this Near Death Experience Take 2. Also, we're going to talk about out of body experiences and some shift symptoms. Some of these energies that are coming in and how they are affecting each of us in different ways. But then again, a lot of synchronicity is going on in that manner too. So, I'm going to let Eileen tell you a little bit more about herself. I have taken down the video that was done before due to the audio issues that we had. So this one will be the one that stays up for everybody to enjoy. This is a very important topic. I think it answers a lot of questions for a lot of people who may be questioning, is this all there is? Or have those kind of feelings and, until you've had an experience like what we're going to share, it kind of opens your eyes to a whole new understanding. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, I really do.
And tell them a little bit more about you and where they can find
Okay.
you.
Well, I have a channel called One. It's spelled out instead of the numeral. It's One Eileen Colts. And I've been on almost a year now. Actually, this month it is a year, which is kind of cool. I used to hang out in Shane's chat room, Michelle, over on Unbiased on the Fence, where I met all you guys. And I would, he'd have me on the show occasionally to talk about my experiences. It lived growing up in Egypt, my near-death experience there, where I was resuscitated at the age of 17. And he just kept saying, why don't you get a channel going? And I said, Shane, I've always wanted to do a channel now for like 2 years, but I just didn't have the get up and go, the oomph to actually get on YouTube. It's kind of a daunting thing, don't you think, Michelle, until you're used to it?
It really is because a lot of the things that are going on with us, it's not it's not like the normal things people talk about, and it's really stepping out of your comfort zone and to talk about a lot of these things that we're sharing. It takes a lot. I mean, it takes a lot to put it out there, so to speak.
I love
But
talking about this stuff. I really do.
it
I probably
brings
talked about it
comfort to
my
so many people, though. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my family, I was really lucky because my sister and her husband and her children, and my mom a little bit, were very esoteric thinking people, always reading and studying about life after death, aliens, walk-ins, what else? Ghost hunting, always interested in the metaphysical, which is everything after the physicality of being a human, going to work, going to bed, feeding your body. We're kind of like more interested in the more mysterious side of being a human being. So I was really lucky. I had company. So I grew up very strange and very open about this stuff. And all my friends, they were cool with it when I was growing up. They're like, oh yeah, Eileen and her family, they're a little wacky, but they're fun. They accepted us.
Cool. And, a lot of this, stuff that we're talking about, we're finding out there's truth in it all. I mean,
Yeah.
There's
I always
something to
knew
be
there was.
said about a lot of these things that, we were like, oh, that's the town nutter. He said he saw a UFO. And you're like, wait, I just saw one too. Am I going to be the town nutter? It's just like,
Yeah, and there's a lot of like policemen and doctors and air traffic authorities that have seen the same things that we did, but they were just silenced, and then I'd say over the last like 20 years, 30 years, they've been coming out with it and going, oh yeah, back in the 1950s, I saw this and I witnessed it, but I had to be quiet about it. So now they're like being more open and honest. I think the veil of deception is what's getting thin now. I think we're starting to see reality and understand who we are as spirit in material bodies. Like you and I talk about this all the time, that we're like avatars. We're these big, expansive spirits borrowing this teeny weeny little physical body on Earth.
yep, yep. And, yeah. And how would we experience if we didn't have these bodies to sense, taste, touch, smell, sound. There's just so much to it. Now, you had a near-death experience when you were 17 years old. By the way, guys, all of her information is in the show. More notes. Also, her page, her
Thanks.
YouTube channel can be found on my homepage. So you can look for her there also. But you had a near-death experience when you were 17 years old. You want to tell us how that all went down for you? And
Sure, because it really did change my life. Although I had this unusual family that we were interested in health foods in the 70s and the paranormal. My mom lived in Chicago. My father worked for an American oil company, and he was always based overseas. So I would spend half my time with each of them. And as a teenager, I was spending a lot of time with my father in Cairo, a little suburb of Cairo called Madi. And we were just getting ready to take a train down to Luxor, and they used to give us a lot of vaccines for living overseas. We'd get everything you guys got in the States, and then they'd give us a smallpox, gamma globulin, yellow fever. They gave us a whole bunch more for Northern Africa. And my dad said, I think it's a good idea to visit the company doctor in the offices of the oil company in the suburb that we were living in, just to get an update on your shots before we start taking trains and going down into some parts of Egypt that perhaps the water isn't as clean and it's not as developed. So I went in, and he just said, all you need is your tetanus update. And it came with diphtheria in it. It was a DT shot. Many times now it's a DTP. And a lot of children react to the pertussis part of it. But mine didn't have pertussis back in 1977. It was just DT. And as he gave me the shot, I felt this burning like fire as the serum moved through my arm, and I looked at my arm, and it was bright red, and it was like wherever the serum went, my skin looked bright red. And I said, oh, that really hurts. And he was like, don't worry about it, it just means your immunity is really strong to the components of the vaccine, like you've had lots of these shots before. And I took a few steps forward out of the private room that we were in where I got the shot, and that was it. It just went instantly black. I don't remember falling. I don't remember being carried to another examination room and put on a table. So what I experienced when I was 17, 40 years ago, actually almost to the date, was called anaphylactic shock or anaphylaxis. And it's when your body responds so seriously as allergic to something, that it immediately shuts everything down. It shuts off the respiratory, so you're not breathing. It shuts down the heart's not working, so you're not pumping oxygen. You're not moving whatever it is you're allergic to around your body. You obviously lose consciousness because you've basically everything stopped. Mm-hmm. So he didn't have the paddles to resuscitate me, so he was trying the CPR with the chest compressions and the breathing, and it wasn't working. So he sent the nurse out of the room, and he said, go down to my car and get this black bag. And he waited forever. It felt like, maybe 3 minutes, and then he left because she wasn't coming back. And he left me alone with my father. And in the bag was it's not epinephrine. What is it when you have to resuscitate people? You give them shots, adrenaline.
Adrenaline, yep, right to the heart.
Yeah, mm-hmm. But he didn't use the heart because I don't know where he put it in, but it wasn't in my heart, just like that movie, Mm-hmm. He gave me one shot of adrenaline. He got me to talk, but I said to him, let me go, and turned away from him. Now, why would a 17-year-old go, let me go? Obviously, I was in a really nice place, right? Mm-hmm. And he gave me a second shot of adrenaline, which if I sat up, I had to lay flat for 8 hours. If you sit up with 2 shots of the human tolerance dose of adrenaline, you have a heart attack and you die. So I was laying there, for 8 hours, and I'd test it out, lift my leg, and it would shake like crazy. And I'd be like, okay, can't sit up, can't walk yet. But the most amazing part of this experience was he did resuscitate me. I didn't have brain damage, and I witnessed the whole thing. I watched the whole process from the point that I was laying on the table, I came to. But I didn't come to in my body. Um, my body was still flatlining, and I came to on the ceiling. So about 6 to 8 feet above my body, I was laying over it, mirroring it, my head over my head, my arms over my arms, my feet over my feet. And I was watching everything happen in the room through a brown fog. That's the only way I can describe it. It was not crystal clear. But the most unusual thing, Michelle, was I didn't know who the doctor was. I didn't know who the man was crying, standing over this young woman. And most surprisingly of all, I didn't know who the woman on the table was. There was no connection of life force between us anymore because my heart wasn't still beating.
Mm-hmm.
And I just watched like I wasn't afraid. I wasn't sad. I was curious. I wasn't overly happy. I had no pain. I had no fear, and I had no discomfort as I watched and listened to what was going on. And after they brought me to, I told the doctor and my dad that I was watching the whole thing, and they tested me. They're like, well, what did we do? And I told them exactly what they did, and I told them exactly what they said in the exact order, so that they both actually wound up believing that I was watching them the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah. But no angels. I didn't see Jesus, which I'm a Christian, so that would be the person most likely to see or marry. I didn't see a dead loved one. You know, I never left the room. But my sister was on life support, and 50 years later, she actually did leave the room, and she did get to see our grandmother who passed on before us. But that's her story. She likes to tell her story, so I don't share the details of it publicly. But we had two very different near-death experiences. How about yours?
Yeah, I did a video on mine, and you know, as soon as the car hit me, I was already out of my body. It was like I got knocked out of it. So then I'm watching this activity, and I'm like, what's going on? Oh, that's me. And then bam, I was gone. I was someplace else. It was absolutely gorgeous. Um, you can't explain the feeling that was going on there. Acceptance, unconditional love. We don't have the words to describe it in the way that would even define it. And like, we said in the last one, and it's on that near death experience video that
I saw it. Yeah,
yeah,
that was a good video.
I didn't have to come back. I was told I didn't have to come back. But then the flashes of these images, and like I said, it was like the images were different probabilities and possibilities with me not coming back on. And there was one individual that, kept coming up in every one of these different and it was like it was so fast. The things we're able to do there there's no comparison. It was a real fast succession. Like I could see this person's lifetime and a lifetime and then a lifetime and then a lifetime. And in each of those, all of a sudden my heart attached and said I didn't want that outcome. And then bam, I was back in my body, and the pain, oh my God, there was no pain there. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't, it was like at the point of impact, I flew up and out of the crosswalk. It was like 18 feet up and out, came down and hit my head, but I was out already. I was out of the body. So, I didn't feel any of that pain. Now, let me tell you on the what was going on here. I was taken to a hospital, and they said I was in shock and wanted to send me home. I didn't know who my parents were. They said I didn't know who they were, or, one speaking English, or I don't know. But they said, no, let's send her over to another hospital. So their intuition told them to send me to another hospital. So it had been about, 8 hours since the accident. And when I got to the other hospital, my parents went to go get themselves something to eat. They figured, the one hospital, several doctors, I'm in shock, they're getting a second opinion. Well, they did what they call a CAT scan and saw that my brain was basically pushed back. This was all blood up in the front. And they couldn't locate my parents. Cell phones, all that stuff wasn't around. Well, who knows
Sure.
now? Mandela effect. They could have had one in their back pocket by now, for all I know. The way things change. But so they couldn't get a hold of my parents. So they got a judge and they got a court order instantly to go ahead and proceed because I was a minor, and go forward with the surgery. It was that
Wow.
timely. I mean, there was no time to waste. In the meantime, while I was in pre-op where they're prepping me, shaving my head and getting me ready to go in, my parents got to come in and talk to me, and didn't recognize them. I just know from what my mom said is, the lady saying, "We're shaving your head now," and I'm like, okay. That's all.
Do you think you were still gone at that point when your parents were talking to you and you didn't recognize them? Were you still away
Oh, I
from your
was away.
body in that
I
beautiful
wasn't
place, or were you back? You were back, or you're
No,
away?
no, I was gone. I was not there.
Ah.
I was not there.
Now,
For this, in the entire part, what I'm telling you now is coming from what I was told by my parents. I was not there. I was at that other place.
but the body's
sitting
still
underneath.
awake and the eyes are open and the mouth is speaking. So the
Yeah,
body
empty
is
vessel.
speaking and responding, but there's nobody home.
No, I
You,
wasn't
as
home.
a
I was
spirit,
gone.
as a soul, is gone. Yeah, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, it really is. It was like it's I was not there. But then the procedure that I had to have in order to get the relief, they have to actually chill you down. They have to stop your blood flow. They have to stop it. And just let's be honest, they have to stop it. So basically no heartbeat, no blood flow, and then they saw you in, evacuate it, and then warm you back up and bring you back.
Okay,
Um,
so you were basically put into, I know they call it a state of suspended animation or something, but it's the death state.
yes,
You were put in the flatlining state. I
but
was
I
in
wasn't
the
there already.
flatlining state.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
was
lot
already.
of people, there's a lot of people who have NDEs, which means near death,
Mhm.
right? Whose hearts never stop beating. They're put on ventilators, they're in a coma. So there's still this connection between the soul and the body as long as their heart is pumping. Um, and there really needs to be a different, like, not an NDE. There has to be a different description for people who flatline. They're not near
Death
death.
experience.
They are dead. They're dead.
Death experience.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're being resuscitated and brought back into the body, because that's a slightly different description, but interestingly, from all the books I've read on it, they have pretty much the same experiences. Whether you're in a coma, you're on life support, or you're flatlining, the experiences described when they wake up are quite similar.
I wonder if you're almost in that in between state. Are we doing them a favor with keeping them on this ventilation? Are we keeping them from going forward? Because I was at a decision place. I mean, I don't. I think there was more. Now I'm telling you, it was bliss. It was paradise. And the man that came up and talked to me, the things that he told me, they're not comprehensible. Even to try to describe, like we're remembering now our abilities and things that we're able to do. Everything was like open there. There was nothing withheld. So, I often talk about that we're here to remember everything that we forgot, and the abilities that we have within us. And I do think that, there's a process that we go through, a refining process. And as we pass tests, so to speak, the more strength in our abilities that comes back to us. Otherwise, everybody would be dead on one temper tantrum from somebody. You know what I'm saying? So it was a very interesting. Now I was able to remember talking to the man. I was able to remember, seeing the succession of images, but I wasn't
Now,
able to remember
was
what
the
was
man
in.
Jesus?
I
Was he a relative? Was he someone that you recognize that meant
no,
something to you?
I didn't recognize the gentleman, and he didn't look like anything that would have been a portrait of Jesus. He had dark hair, but the love that radiated off of him He was, oh my, just to be in his presence was so calming. The whole place was just calming. And he just told me, it was almost like, there was no dumb question. And he didn't look down on me it was amazing. So, but that's when the succession of pictures, because he said I didn't have to go back. And I remembered that, and then he showed me these images. He's like, I say, he showed me. They just kind of popped up, like let's say you got a computer in front of you, and it's rapidly going through somebody in time lapse, very very quickly through somebody's lifespan, and then another one, and then it was like I was able to see all possibilities and probabilities if I decided to stay. And there was just one individual that meant a great deal to my to my heart. And as soon as my heart locked in there, bam, I was back in my body.
You were just like, the decision was made.
Yes.
Now, you and I, at least we've gotten to talk about this a couple of times, on camera and off camera. And Jesus was a Jew, and he had dark hair and swarthy skin. He had the DNA of the people in the region 2,000 years ago. And you were like, yeah, but all the pictures I've seen of Jesus are like the Western European pictures with blonde hair, blue eyes, light skin. So what's interesting is I always wonder if you were meeting with Christ but not recognizing Christ, or it could have been an angel, or it could have been anybody, if it wasn't like your grandfather. But it's always interesting, the way you describe him to me, having been raised in the Middle East, is the way I would see him. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I didn't recognize him as being that, and he actually didn't try to put himself as a lord over me or anything of that nature, and not, so he was just having a conversation with me. And and we were sitting on a log under a tree. It was absolutely beautiful.
Did you ever see that movie called Always?
No, and there's another movie somebody else brought up last time that I need to watch, and I need to watch that one. I haven't watched it.
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life is Jimmy Stewart, black and white. I watch it every Thanksgiving.
That's probably why
Christmas.
I haven't seen it. I don't watch black and white movies.
That's the one you could watch, because he doesn't want to live. He wants to kill himself, and his guardian angel comes down. I think it's from like the 1940s. It's such a sweet film, and says, okay, I've granted your wish. And now he has to see what the world will be like without him. That reminds me of you reviewing the future if you don't go back. It's like, well, what will happen to people if I don't go back? Just like that movie. Sitting on a log and talking to a beautiful, lovely, kind man. That's like in the movie Always, where I think it's Richard Dreyfuss and Holly Hunter. One of them dies, and they wind up in this beautiful like forest under a tree. I think it's Richard Dreyfuss with the actress from Tiffany's. Who is that? Audrey Hepburn.
Really?
And she comes to talk to him in this white suit. From the 1980s, I swear. It's like 83. I'm going way back in my memory now, because I only saw it once in the cinema.
Yeah, there was no white robes or any of that going on either, guys.
No.
I mean, really, it wasn't like that.
He just sits on a log, and she talks to him about his life now that he's left his body. So what's really fascinating when you've had an NDE is you read all the books about other people who've had NDEs. Everybody experiences something similar but unique. It's like some things are the same and some things are very unique and special to you. So the best book I ever read about it is by P.M.H. Atwater, and it's called Near Death, The Rest of the Story. So she interviews 4,000 people, and that's all the book is about. She just puts down the experiences in kind of groupings, right? Not individual stories of what happened to these 4,000 people, and it's amazing, the similarities. For instance, children never go to hell. Children always report going straight to a heaven-like place, and then they're resuscitated and they come back, right? Adults, this is not bad, 15% of adults go to a hellish place first, and then they eventually make it into a heaven-like place. They don't stay in hell, and then they're resuscitated. And 85%, like you, go straight from their physical bodies to a heaven-like place immediately. So the odds are pretty good that it's going to be a good experience. Well, what she found out in interviewing these people
And I'm
was
going to
that
tell you,
those
I was no angel when, I was 15 and I
Yeah.
was ornery, okay? So
all
you guys,
teenagers are, and they
so
lie, and they, sneak
I
out of the
was
house,
I was an
steal their parents'
ornery
car keys.
15-year-old. So I was what they would call a heavy metaler, I liked that rock and roll music, and so
That's
just
so hard to
saying.
see you like that right now.
I
That is
know, but
funny.
I still like that kind of music, rock and roll music. I still like it. That's just different music moves different people,
Sure.
and there's no, I don't think of music in a bad way. I mean, if it moves you and you enjoy it and it brings you happiness, then there is no bad music, right? I mean, so
Exactly. Your
it's just
personal
interesting
choice.
the things that we think here are not what we think, that it's not, has no bearing there. It's not,
Well,
it's not.
what she found was that the people who went straight to hell, or a hellish like place, there was no fire, there was no devil, there was no Satan, there were no demons. So first get that out of your mind. 4,000 people who were medically proven to be dead. They had to have, to get into her study, you had to have medical notes that proved you were resuscitated. You would qualify, I would qualify.
Mhm.
But somebody who says they fell off their bike and they think they had a near death, she wouldn't use them because they weren't medically
Mhm.
verified, flatlined, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So the interesting thing was that the people who went to a hell-like place carried a great deal of guilt. They were guilty about their actions. They didn't feel worthy. And she said
Ah.
whether they were, this is it, this is how bad it is. It's based on your personal belief about what you deserve. Because she said you could have somebody like a murderer in prison who had a near-death experience who went straight
Straight
to
to
heaven
heaven.
because he says, "Oh, that guy deserved to die that I killed. I didn't do anything wrong." And because he believed he was worthy, he experienced a heaven-like place immediately. This upsets a lot of people because it gets rid of the punishment aspect, right,
Right. Mhm.
of life after death.
Well, it
And then,
goes with what we've been talking about, that we're our own judge.
yes, and then like a little old lady who felt guilty because she didn't take care of her husband when he got sick after they got divorced. She might go to a straight hellish type place, and then when she's interviewed, she'd say, "Well, I didn't deserve heaven. I didn't do what I was supposed to do here," because she was judging herself. So, it's that crazy. The discrepancy of who goes to heaven and who goes to hell is based on what you think you deserve.
And I
Isn't that
wonder if,
amazing?
like how I was describing that, I felt like it was like a holding place. It wasn't. I wasn't there yet. You know what I went to
I agree.
So I'm
It's
wondering if these people with these near
Yeah.
death experience, they experience a hellish thing, that it would be very temporary. And then the
Yes.
fog would clear and they would go back to being the brilliant
Every
being that they
single one
are.
of them. Okay, so let's talk about, we were only in the holding places. None of us got to the permanent place because we were all resuscitated.
Hmm.
Maybe you can't go to the permanent place and come back from it. Maybe that's how
Right.
separate it is.
Nobody
But
sees
even
God and lives.
Yeah, exactly. And even the ones who went to a hellish place, they then got into a heaven-like place, and then they decided to come back, or they were brought back without their decision. They were still in a holding place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They weren't even in the place yet, and they managed 100% managed to get out of hell, or a hellish place, before they even got to the real place.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's almost like that place.
Yeah, because
If you feel
I was told I didn't have to go back, so that, and then I was shown those things, and I was told, oh my gosh, that things that didn't unfold for years, but it was beautiful. There was unconditional love. It was wonderful. The gentleman that came and talked to me told me anything and everything possible, but I didn't. I would have been happy and content just to stay right there. But I
right in that
don't
holding
think,
place.
yeah, I just don't think that that's it. I think that that is like what we're just talking about. But these are just opinions. I just
Yeah, they're your opinions. They're my opinions.
because there was
I did a
nobody
bit of
else there.
research
There's
on
no
it.
way that in heaven or in the heavenly realms that it's just me and this man. You see what I'm saying?
No,
There's
no,
there's a
you were
lot
in a
more going
place where
on
you had to
there.
decide. You
Yes.
were in the train station, the junction of, do I go back into physical reality on Earth, or do
Mm-hmm.
I move on and go to the, I call it a kind of an in-between place.
And
A
yeah,
place you
I
go
wanted to
in
stay. I'm
between
gonna tell you,
lifetimes.
I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to stay. I mean, I didn't want to come back, but there was something in my heart that just, and as soon, and it was, oh my gosh, it happened so fast. As soon as my heart linked in that I loved that person so much that I did not want them to survive on any of those possibilities or probabilities. Bam, I was back in my body.
Well, you're talking Mandela effect there too, because you were shown timelines, and I love Cynthia Sue Larson. Her book Quantum Jumping. She's got a YouTube channel, Reality Shifters. I've been reading her for decades, and she wrote about the Mandela effect before it was even coined by Fiona Broome in 2009. You know, she goes way back, and she's basically saying that all the dimensions of you and all the possibilities of your life are right here, right now, but you only focus on one at a time. You're focusing on one life that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you want to quantum jump into another version of you, you don't have to jump timelines into a point somewhere in the universe. You simply shift your focus. You do something different. You think differently. You act differently. You believe differently. You get rid of some of the old beliefs that aren't serving you well anymore. And you come up with some new ones. And then suddenly you've shifted your focus and you're now on a different trajectory. Same person, same body, different outcome. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and you were just like shown the
Mm-hmm.
Mandela effect when you were a teenager by looking at all the possible outcomes
I didn't
of
even
that
think
one
about it that way.
person's
Yeah.
life.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was possibilities or probabilities.
There you
Yeah,
go.
it was
Possibilities and probabilities.
whatever choice, whatever decision and choice that individual made, whatever path. Because like I said, it was shown multiple, and it was fast. I mean, time doesn't work the same there. But yeah, it's food for thought, guys. Because I've been knocked out before, and I've had surgery before. And when you have
Me too.
surgery, you're like counting backwards, 10, 9, and then you wake up going 7, 6, 5. What? It's over. It's like
But you don't
you
go
don't know.
anywhere.
You
You don't
don't.
go to that holding place.
No, no, it just
No.
goes black for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So, some
Yeah.
people that, may have gotten sucker punched and got knocked out or something, and it just goes black. They get confused thinking that there is no place because they've been knocked out before and there was nothing there. But that,
Oh, that makes sense. And they would think that when you die, you go into
that's just
nothingness.
nothingness. And right. So, and that's
Well,
why
all
it's
these
important we
people come
talk about
back
this.
and says, all these people. There's so many books on it. Many lives, many masters. Near-death experience. The rest of the story. That's my favorite by far. Oh, she's got another book I'm reading now called Future Memory. She wrote it in 1999, and it's about like the Mandela effect. It's like about remembering your future. It's all these people are coming back with these
Go
stories.
into
They're not
that
making
place
it
that's
up.
not a place, that's a time that's no time, and dropping down. People call it prophecy. Some people call it what's the other word that they use?
Deja vu,
Precog.
precognition.
Precognition. Deja vu to me is like, okay, I've been in the situation, I've already seen it, but we're making a
I've done
different
this.
choice.
It's all happened before. That's like reliving your past, but you don't remember having done it before and you're doing it in the present. Deja vu is fun. It's very,
But you're
very,
making a different choice. It wouldn't be deja vu if you didn't make a different choice.
that's a good point. If you made
There's
exactly the
change.
same choice, you wouldn't even notice it.
Right. Right.
That's a
So,
good point.
so
That's a good point. So my opinion, I was raised a good Catholic, and I was raised in the Middle East and America and the West Indies. And I was raised in Catholic school. It was very harsh in the 1960s. Some of the nuns were beautiful, and some of them were brutal. That's just the way it was in the 60s in the Chicago suburbs. And
gotta
I
have
hear
that
from
balance.
yeah, I hear from people. I do videos on it, and they're like, I had the same teacher, I had the same nun as you. We just laugh about it now. We laugh it off. We survived it, right? But then I went on to a Jesuit university, it was my choice because of the programs that they offered. And I did have to study the Bible, the New Testament, the Old Testament. And I'm not a Jesuit. I don't condone any of that. Now that I've learned about our hidden history, I'm like, I'm not really true to the Vatican, true to the Knights of Christ. It was a military organization, but I did learn a lot because then I started studying quantum mechanics, quantum physics out of university as kind of a sideline, and other religions. So I would like read the Quran. I would pick up the Mahabharata from India and I would read it. And I would pick up the religious texts in Tibet, the Egyptian Book of Death, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and I would read them. And I was always kind of searching for that little grain of truth that I thought would be in every single human religious text on earth. And it is there. There are many grains of truth that are available in all of these religious writings. But the one thing I can say from my heart they all have in common is they were all written by human beings who were divinely inspired. If you call them a prophet, today they're called channels. Same thing happened to the prophets that happens to channels today. They see apparitions, they hear voices.
But they can still only put it into the context that is available to them. So that's where
they're a human being
right.
with certain prejudices and certain likes and dislikes, and it's filtering through their brain and their heart and coming out to the world with their prejudices. So now I think the next step is that we're all becoming those prophets. We're all connecting to God. We're all saying, well, maybe I don't need a bishop to save me so that I don't go to hell. Maybe I can pray and meditate and connect with God and the divine and know that I am safe, know that I'm loved, know that I'm going to a beautiful place. But then with all these religious books I read from around the world, it took quite a few decades to get through them. They're not fun reading, And
the surface level reading on them, they could be really condemning. But when now the Bible now to me is a beautiful book because I can see it now. I see it as the condition of man going through the refinement period. We start off as this judgmental, wrathful, and let's get into out of body experiences because that it's we've only got 20 minutes left already.
It goes so fast.
I know. So let's talk.
Have you had some OBEs?
Yes.
Have you done out of body? So have I. I've had an OBE upon waking up, and I've had an OBE on meditating. That was the most fun. The one where I was meditating, I was the most. I was meditating, and it was late at night, and I wasn't tired, but I thought, well, before I go to sleep, lights out, no sound, no music, no distractions, no lights. I'm just going to meditate. And I went so far in that I came out the other side. It's like going in a black hole and coming out a white hole, which used to be called quasars. Dead GPK, if he's in the room, I love what he sent me on white holes. I found out they're the old quasars that Stephen Hawking used to talk about. And by the way, guys, I can't see the chat because of my internet connection. So if you're asking, okay.
And if you guys at my name, I will see it to ask questions in the last 10 minutes.
Okay, because I can't see your questions. I'm not ignoring you. But the point is, he's been sending me, he's really good at following cosmic developments. And we have these white holes now, which are kind of like similar to quasars. So energy goes through a black hole, it gets sucked in, it gets busted up, and it gets pushed out, brilliantly out of a white hole or a quasar. And that's how creation recycles itself. It's never ending, kind of like a soul, if you think about it. So this OBE for me, because I'll say it fast so you can tell us yours, is it was like suddenly I was sucked into a black hole where there was nothing, no sound, just my consciousness, just me, no stars, no thoughts, no other beings. And the next thing I knew, I expanded fast, and I was bigger than the room, I was bigger than the earth, and I swear I was bigger than the galaxy. And I was like, whoa, what is this expansion feeling? And that's when I had my out-of-body experience. My soul got to reconnect. My spark of soul in my body reconnected to the big soul that is me somewhere. and I felt how big I was when there's no matter, nothing to contain you. It was awesome. How about you, Michelle?
Mine I normally have at nighttime, and
Mine
I
was
call
too.
it astral projecting. And I hear the energy buzzing in my ears, and I feel the buzzing. It's like an inner, and a lot of times you're gonna think this is funny. I would lay down and I'd be like, "Oh, we just had a small earthquake," and I'm like, and then I would like, and it takes me forever to fall asleep from the accidents and stuff I've been in, to situate and get comfortable and stuff. When I'm about to have one of these experiences, head hits the pillow, I'll feel a little bit of the shaking, and bam, I'm gone. And
Now, do you get to fly? Because I do a lot of flying lucid dreams now. I'm awake in
in
my
lucid
dream and I'm
dream, flying,
flying.
gliding, and
Yeah.
it feels like I'm on skates sometimes. When I'm in lucid dreaming, um, and I become aware that I am actually in a dream, then we realize the rules don't apply. And then I can raise myself up and look down at the situation. A lot
Yep.
of times when we're in lucid dream, we could be actually, we're thinking we're a participant and it's us, but it's not us. We're actually viewing it from somebody's perspective. We're feeling the emotions that they're having. And then when I become lucid, I go above it and look down at the situation, and you can see it from a whole different perspective.
Well, now
But
that's
astro
interesting because,
jumping is different, though. It
yeah,
has
it
that
is. What
different
you're describing
sensation.
now is the human collective consciousness that Carl Jung talked about. You're rising yourself up to a point where you're one with all humanity, and you can look down and watch anything. And some people actually think that perhaps, all these stories of reincarnation where little children can say who they were, where they lived, what their parents were, and then the investigator goes, finds out it's all true,
Wow.
and they go, that must mean that this little boy Billy was this man Tom who died in an aircraft. This is a true story, by the way, that was down during World War II, because he knows his name, his address, his parents, his car, his dog. He knows everything about that man.
Wow.
Now, either there's three possibilities, and you're experiencing that when you're looking down, and it's not even your experience. You're hitting the collective mind. Either Billy's spirit did experience that man's life, or a part of his soul group experienced that man's life, and he's connected to his soul group, so of course he remembers that man's life. Or because we're all one and we're all human and we have this super consciousness, which explains the 100th monkey effect, and how pyramids popped up everywhere at the same time, and how two people can come up with the same experiment at the same time on opposite ends of the world without any telephones or communication. Possibly
Which is what I
we
call
can
a synchronicity. I
yes,
love synchronicities.
possibly we could be experiencing another person's life because we're human and we're remembering it as our own. We're going, because when you do, you remember a past life, you see it through your own eyes. You look down and you see your body, you see your house, you see your family, the car, the dog, the carpet, the clothes. You could be stepping into the hive. Well, people don't like to call it a hive mind because it makes them
I
think
really
of
think of
insects.
that we are going from hive mind programming into heart centered manifesting.
That's a good point, because the ruling elite, the powers that were, instead of the powers that
That's
be,
right. I love
always
that.
feed always feed fear into the hive mind,
Mind.
which is just collective consciousness, okay? We're not really a hive, but I don't know, people call it that too. And now we're stepping out of that hive mentality and we're becoming individually empowered. It's between me and God. It's between me and my higher self. It's between me and source. What's interesting is people who do that become kinder, gentler, more empathetic. They don't become mean, dominant, and more powerful. Because one of the main arguments against connecting with God directly is, who do you think you are? How dare you not go through the intermediaries, be it a priest, a church, Jesus, Mohammed, Buddha? How dare you connect with God? But the people who do are very godlike. They become lovely, compassionate, generous. They don't become oppressive,
Right.
domineering,
Right.
greedy.
They're not competing. And
Yeah,
remember,
no.
Christ said himself, when you see him, you'll be like him.
That's right. And all these things that I do and more shall you also do. I think that was in Luke. Yeah, yeah, there are some beautiful words from Jesus. Now, the Old Testament, okay, I've done a bit of research on the history of it. It really picks up a lot of the Sumerian myths, like Gilgamesh is the story of
I'm
Noah and the
working on
flood.
those now. I'm gonna
Oh,
do
I
it.
love it.
I'm doing them in small bite-sized pieces, though, so
Good,
they're
because then
palatable
we
for
can
people.
digest it. Definitely. I love
There's so
that
many
last video.
characters, and they're gonna all blend in because they go in from there to Egypt to Greek to Rome. So I want to make
Yes.
sure the characters' names, as they change, still everybody is able to follow
Well,
along
this
as we
is
go
where
through this.
Jesus did something really radical. Here we have the Old Testament with a God that smites people and drowns people and burns them down and turns them to stone and punishes, punishes, punishes. Well, that God is very much like the Sumerian god of war. And even their names are similar because, Abraham was these are the Abrahamic religions. First of all, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are all Abrahamic religions.
And then they all
And
have offshoots.
and they all have offshoots.
Yes.
So he was in Sumer, Babylon. And this is before they wrote the Torah and the Talmud. Now, the Talmud was the spoken one and the Torah was written, or I might be reversing that. We're talking the Chaldean book of Numbers, the Kabbalah, the
The
mystical
Kabbalah,
Judaism.
the Kabbalah, but the Torah is the written law. So you're right on that.
There you go. There you go. I got that right. So you've got all of this information coming out from a group of people and a man who spent a great deal of time in Sumer, Babylon, Mesopotamia, Sumerian clay tablets. So all they did was change the names. They've got the same characters, the same stories going on. So then you've got this Old Testament with a real fire and brimstone God who punishes and kills humanity and demands blood sacrifice, at least of lambs, if not of your own son. Okay, well, what happens? Jesus comes along and totally throws that upside down and says, God doesn't want to punish you. God loves you. God forgives you. He changes everything. The only time he became violent was when he kicked the moneylenders' tables over in the temple. And he said, do not make profit in a place of God. That was the only time he really got upset and did something physical. So he was a real radical religious character saying all this Old Testament stuff, we need the New Testament. We need the new way of relating
Which
and
was
believing
actually the old
about
way.
God.
It was that God has no shadow of turning. He's always been the same. It's just man's interpretation. I've talked about that. Here is the interpretation was not a mistake from the spirit. It was my thought process. And until I got all
Yep.
my clutter out of the way, then I could hear more clearly. Okay, so on the out of body experiences, so you've actually had one while you were meditating awake. And
Yes,
mine
and I've had
happened
one.
in sleeping time.
I've had
So,
mine in that zone right between sleep. There's a zone
oh yeah,
of
me too.
theta brain waves between gamma, which is sleep, or beta. I can't remember. Alpha is awake. And there's a zone in between sleeping and waking where I had my OBE, and it's really easy then to become lucidly aware of the fact that you're not awake and you can have your out of body experiences. Some people like visit friends and family. They can actually direct where their astral energy goes, and they can remember things that actually happened while they were astrally projecting, and then when they're awake they can verify it that it actually did or didn't happen. So I don't really do it on purpose. Some people do you like
No.
astrally?
I just
No.
go. It's like
Yeah.
I could be sitting here talking to you full of energy, and next thing I know, I'm like all of a sudden just dead tired, and I'll barely even hit the pillow, and boom, I'm gone. I'm somewhere
Yeah,
else,
it's at
checking
that
something else
time, that
out.
in between state between sleep and awake, that you can astrally project and be aware of where you're going, what you're doing.
Eileen, there was that one time I was laying down 15 minutes. That was the whole time that I was laying down. But I thought I was gone for hours and hours. And when I came back, my whole body was vibrating. And I was freaking
Wow.
out because I'm like, what just happened, and it had only been 15 minutes. I felt completely wiped out. I had to hurry and get to my bed. I barely made it. Laid down, went, seen all this. Actually, I did a video on it. It's the one where I saw the 7 planets, the luminary planets in the sky, and the 3 suns, and the information exchange that was going on there. We were gone for hours. It was like we walked like a 40-acre.
While you tell that story, let me plug in because I just got a notification that my computer's going to die. So tell them what you actually saw while you were doing your OB, and I'll plug in.
Okay, plug in. Okay, so it was like 40 acres that I walked all the way around. And then I got to the end of that, and there was a man there, and I realized I didn't know this at the time. I had some kind of weird glasses on, and I started to try to remove them from my face. He's like, don't do that until you get inside. And there was this vehicle that I was getting into, and it was Liera that showed me these vehicles. I showed it as a white van, but it had real dark tinted windows and stuff on it. And she showed me some actual vehicles that actually resembled what I was looking at and what I was getting into. But I couldn't take my glasses off until I got inside that vehicle. And then, bam, I was back in my body, and I looked at the clock. I was completely rested, and it had only been 15 minutes. And my whole body was just buzzing. The ears were, we hear those frequency ringings. It wasn't like that. It was a hum from the inside. It frazzled me. I'm not, gonna.
I'm going to talk to Shane about that because we do this live show every Saturday night called The Power of 8.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been saying that during the meditation, we do a live meditation with heart coherence on a global issue. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we focus on ourselves as a community and heal ourselves. Like once a month, we try to do that. But the other 3 weeks of the month, we're extending our love out into the world to heal an issue, a specific issue. And he's been saying, Michelle, that during the meditation, his ears buzz. He said, Eileen, have you ever had your ears buzz? And I said, no, I haven't. I'm not buzzing, And I think that's what's happening. I think because he goes very
He's
deeply
activating.
into a lot to. He's starting to actually leave his body. He's starting to go into that in-between place where, if you read this book by PMH Atwater, Future Memory, she talks about that. There's no time. There's no space in that state of
that's what I say. I go to that place that's no place, that at a time that's no time. And then I'll drop down. I'll drop down into an area and check it out and do whatever. And then I'll wake up back here and I'm like, what in the world did I just witness? I mean,
you have to have time
amazing.
And space. Time and space are attached as one element. They're not really, but they're 2 elements, but they can't be separated. Because if you're in a physical body, in order to move, you have to be able to move through something measurable, space. And to move, you have to have time. You have to have the time to move from point A to point Z. So when your mind is astral projecting and your spirit is out of body, there's no time and space. You no longer have that clunky, heavy body with you. Time and space in order to move. It can move instantly, across universes, across dimensions. We
have a huge Merkaba that surrounds us. And we are the ones that are creating the size of the Merkaba. It's just like we were talking about earlier. It just seems like as we are tested and retested, we feel like we're going in circles sometimes, but we're reacting differently when situations keep coming around. And as they do, I think that the strength comes in, and and like you were talking about, that there are so many people that are becoming more gentle, more peaceful, more loving, more giving, more empathetic. And then there you've got some others that are still in competition, get jealous, get angry, are bitter. So, and it's not that we always have we could always change the path we're on. That's one great thing about this place. No matter what is going on, we can always overcome whatever that situation that is presenting itself, that is making us feel bitter or judgmental or wrathful. Overcome that, pass that test. Don't think it won't be tested again on it, because things do come back to make sure, and then we get more strength and more. It just seems like
Yeah,
more
until
and
the
more
lesson's
is
learned.
unlocked, in each
Yeah,
of us.
when the lesson's learned, it doesn't need to come back again. Just like with
Mm-hmm.
classroom earth, when you no longer can learn anything from duality, hot, cold, up, down, black, white, male, female, fear, love, all these dualities that we experience every moment of
Okay.
our life on earth. When that doesn't serve you anymore, you're not going to come back here anymore. If you have nothing to learn here, what a waste of spirit time to be put in a place where you have nothing to learn. This is why I always tell people when they're anxious that the event happens tomorrow, I'm like, you know what? You chose to come here for a reason. You're here, so you still have something to learn. So don't wish it all away. Don't rush it away. It
Before this
really,
pops off my screen and I
yeah.
don't see it, I'm sorry. And Overprotected keeps popping back and forth. She must be
Hey,
having
Sherry.
technical issues. She said the buzzing is a frequency shift, like turning a radio dial. So she added my name. So when you add my name, I'm gonna, try to read it, and hopefully it stays on the screen long enough that I
Great
can
description,
grab it.
Sherry.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and that's we're gonna tie this up with some energy waves that we've all been dealing with, and some of the symptoms that people have been complaining of.
Ear ringing,
No,
tiredness,
no,
headaches.
this was something that actually just came up this morning. I had been going through it for about a month, and I thought maybe I had a flu or something like that, and I went out of town over the weekend, and I was a little concerned, and I even told my mom, I'm like, we're going to this birthday party, we're going to eat there, and every time I eat, I would have to go and use the restroom like I was some kind of a human liquefier. I mean, it was terrible. Well, lo and behold, this is
Human
happening to
liquefier.
other people. So, be on the lookout for that. Now, don't take, what I'm saying over any medical advice. But I just heard and got confirmation from somebody else going through, this process that they're going through that, and now their spouse has begun to go through this process. My husband went through this process, and it got to the point where I was not eating for a few days, but I was completely energized. But
I
every
went
time
through
I
it. I
did
went through it. My
eat,
family went through it.
yeah, every time I
Um,
did eat, it just came right back out. So I started taking a supplemental vitamin just because, I'm human. I'm gonna, But I just wanted to bring up that's one of them, and another one is people seem to be getting very depressed. There's a lot of old stuff that's getting stirred up that's got to come up and out. I just wanted to touch on these because don't that's just something we just wouldn't talk about as a lady. We're not going to sit there and talk about our bathroom habits. It's just not. But it is important that we at least put the information out. I think that Tony from T Taylor, her website or her YouTube channel, she does all of the physical stuff with the things coming out of her skin and everything like that. I do think that it is more important to let people know that there are other people going through these things and that you're not alone, so we don't have a mass panic, because I didn't feel
yeah, and but
ill
the
or
other
anything like that. It was just like I said, the food tasted good
purging.
going in. I was a human
You know,
liquefier.
when, I know that's just such a nice, gentle way to describe it.
Went through the blender.
When you think about the waves of energy, everybody watches the
Ah,
Schumann
Jane
amplitude.
said that
They're not
happened to
looking at
her
the Schumann
today.
hertz. They're looking at the Schumann amplitude and going, oh, this is why I have a headache. This is why I can't
Oh
eat food. This
no.
is why my ears are ringing. We are being bombarded with gamma radiation from the galaxy, and it is at ground level like it's never been before because of our scattered Earth's electromagnetic shield. It's scattered, it's distorted, it's broken up. So all this cosmic radiation is hitting us like never before. So it's kind of hard. You might be like having a symptom, check the Schumann resonance, which is stable, and go, oh, I must be sick. Why am I having a reaction? Well, it's because it's not all Schumann related, although Schumann does kind of not cause these symptoms, but it is a sign that there are high frequency changes on the earth. If the tone of the earth, the hertz amplitude, goes up or down, that's a sign that we're being hit by these cosmic waves. Well, we don't all have to have the same experience
And
every
remember,
day.
we're being eaten up by the Milky Way. I
I
prefer
know.
Snickers, but the Milky Way is eating us up.
Crazy video. If you guys want to hear something that'll knock your socks off,
Let's finish
go
up
to my
with
channel
Let's
and
finish up
watch
with
that video, because I'm going to look into it. Apparently, but let me just finish this one thought first.
Sure.
Some people here, there's dozens of channels going, these are the symptoms that I'm experiencing, therefore everybody experiences them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how it works.
Mm-mm.
Ascension is individual.
Mm-hmm.
Your body is slightly tuned differently than other people.
Mm-hmm.
So while one person might be having what Michelle has, where she can't digest food, she's getting DNA upgrades where maybe we don't need to eat food anymore eventually. So now her body's rejecting food. You know, but you're going, well, I'm not ascending because I'm eating like a horse and it's going through me the right way. No,
That's not how it works. No.
You might be having like headaches, and other people might be having ear ringing, and other people might have digestion. Mm-hmm. It's as individual to the person as their body and their ascension process is. But we all tend to have the same things happen eventually. Yes. It's like eventually, like I had the digestive issues in July, and I'm telling you, I was like, I don't need to eat anymore.
That's terrible.
I was like, no pain, no tummy cramps like bad food, no flu like symptoms, just couldn't eat food. Food would just go through me like water, and I'm like, oh, maybe I don't need to eat.
And see, that's what I try to talk about. You know, we know the old ones. We know about the ears ringing. We know about the headaches. We know about all the dizziness. We know about. But when something new comes up, I do like to put it out there as soon as possible, so that way people can say, "Oh, okay." So it's just adding to the list. It's not taking away or. There is no higher than, lower than. There is no less than, or no. It's not, once we get over that.
And if you're feeling happy and energetic, don't think, oh, I'm not ascending because I'm not feeling depressed. That will be in people who respond in that way to real changes to energy. So some things we share, some things we don't share, some things we go through sooner, some things we go through later. It doesn't mean that you're not on the ascension path,
Well, the whole planet is going through this. The earth. Christ said we're a new earth. The heavens will pass away. We're getting a new earth, and then we're on it. So we're going to go through this. It's just all these when different things come up, and then like the synchronicities of, because I just had this happen, and then I thought, I just had that thought, well, maybe I better go see my doctor. Boom, it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Gone.
Yeah, I just don't. I see my doctor if I'm dying. That's just me. Like, it's an ascension thing. I'll get over it, and I do.
Well, I see him every month.
I just don't tell him everything. Guys.
I do see my doctor every month with the disability and stuff. That problems
you have
I have
to because
But I haven't brought it up to him because I was like, I don't understand it because I don't feel sick. No,
and he'll probably stick something up your butt all the way up to your tummy. You don't want to go through that unless you have to.
Anal probe. Forget that, man.
You're probably getting that anyway with your alien contact, right?
Enough with the probing already. I think you've seen enough.
Okay, we had to get some laughs on this show, right? So anyway, to tie it all up in a really strange way, thank you, Greg. My brother in Colorado sent me a video, and I watched it, and there was a small portion in the video. It was all about the great year and all the changes we're going through with the Kali Yuga, and that really kind of ties to the Schumann resonance and planets getting hotter and brighter and the Mandela effect. And in my mind, I'm connecting all these things. And suddenly, I hear about 2 studies that were conducted at the University of Massachusetts and the University of Virginia. I will research this, guys, but through infrared telescopic evidence of our galaxy, the Milky Way is like this, and we're like this. So they're all like, what's tilting our solar system? Nibiru, Nemesis, a twin sun? Possibly. But what they found by mapping the stars was that the Milky Way is like this, full of billions of stars. And then inside it is a tiny little galaxy called the Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy that contains our solar system with its own system of stars moving through the Milky Way, which is 10 times bigger. So basically, this happens all the time in the universe apparently, two galaxies collided, and the bigger one, the Milky Way, ate the Sagittarius dwarf arm, which is us. Not dwarf arm, dwarf galaxy.
And maybe that explains why when we were kids, we thought we were on some Sagittarius arm, and now we're in some Orion spur.
Thank you. Yes, and they're actually not suppressing this information. You can get it if you look for it. Okay, guys? But they're not putting it out there. They don't want the general public to know that we're on a tiny little galaxy getting gobbled up by a big galaxy, which could explain the Schumann resonance, the Earth magnetic shield, the tilting, tugging on our solar system, the North Pole migrating. It's over Siberia. It moves like 100 miles south a year. This could explain everything, including the Mandela effect. But they're not telling us. They're not sharing the information like they should.
What fun would that be? We wouldn't have any fun with all the guessing and all our theories. And, you know, as humans, we like puzzles. We like challenges, and we like to figure things out. But we get to a point where we're starting to get frustrated, so just tell us already.
Yeah.
Just
So it's this
disclosure.
ruling elite
We can handle
kind
it.
of
We can handle
gobbling up all the information. The ruling elite who have the information, they have the time, the money, the resources, the science, the telescopes. They're finding all this stuff out, but they're not really sharing it. So we're all going down here going, is it CERN? It must be CERN. No, it's D-Wave. It must be the devil.
And
it's
then they
a
laugh
demon.
at us. Yeah.
And then they laugh at us because
Yeah.
they're not giving us, we're not playing on the same field of information.
They
you
think
know?
that, but we get our information. We
We
get it,
do.
no matter
We do.
what. They can try to suppress it, but we still all get it. Okay, you guys, we've been well over an hour, and you know what? She'll be back.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to have you back because of. I feel like we had to rush through the topics, and we both have a lot more to say on things. So we
covered a lot of topics. This was fun.
Yeah, and we will definitely not interfere with Shane's schedule. Absolutely not. But her and I have been talking quite a bit behind the scenes, and there is so much going on, and it's just fun to share. And what you guys actually pretty much got a glimpse of.
We have this awesome community
what we
of
would
people.
talk about on the phone. If we were talking offline, we were just talking to. This is what you would get.
Yeah, we'd be talking about Sumerian clay tablets and Nibiru
CERN.
and Nemesis.
Yes.
Same stuff. And comparing our near-death experience notes, same stuff. We have an awesome community. This is a really loving, accepting, supportive, great place to be, guys.
And you guys remember, I put all of her information is in the show more notes. Show her some love.
Thank you.
Do check out that video that she did on the Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah,
and
that's a good one. That's interesting.
If you want to mute out just for a second, and we will let all these fine folks go. Thank you guys all so much. I love you.